Welcome to tonight's Horror Compilation. We have 11 terrifying stories from Reddit. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare to be disturbed. This one is called, "This Is Not a Suicide Note." 3 months ago, I learned of my uncle's passing. We weren't particularly close ... but he left me one of his houses in the will. I was touched ... but just wanted to sell it off. I am a fairly new father of twin girls and didn't need another thing to manage right now. To speed up the process, I decided to travel across the country to live in the house until a sale was assured. My job just requires a laptop and phone, so I was approved to work remotely for the time being. Unfortunately, my wife had to stay at her job, so I had to come alone. At first, I treated it as a mini vacation. I had hoped it would only last a week. But the process was more involved than I thought. I had a realtor taking care of most things ... But after a month, I'm still here. I noticed things going wrong right away. Stuff was never where I last placed it. I'd see shadows out of the corner of my eye. I've lose track of time constantly. I thought it was caused by stress, loneliness. Except for the few times the realtor came by with prospective buyers, the house was the quietest place I had ever been in. Before I completely lost my mind, the neighbor came by with a dog. She was an elderly woman who explained that she had been dog sitting while my uncle was in the hospital. Now that I was here, she thought I should take Buster, the golden retriever. Either way, I fell in love with Buster, and his presence was exactly what I needed. I even thought it would be a tremendous present to bring home to my girls. I just hoped my wife would feel the same way. However, even the dog could tell something was wrong with the house. Buster accepted his new living arrangements pretty quickly ... but would never willingly go upstairs. This was all right with me at the time. I thought it would make it easier to keep track of him. Then, Buster disappeared. Literally, 1 second he was standing right behind me as I was opening the treat jar to give him a snack. My eyes left him for just a moment to put the jar back ... and then he was gone. I ran through the whole house calling his name. The kitchen was connected to the living room, and on the other end of that was the master bedroom and study. The other end of the kitchen led to a dining room, which was connected to the entrance hall that also led into the living room and stairs to the second floor. After walking upstairs, you had a choice of right or left along a balcony that overlooked the living room on one side and entrance on the other. Going left led immediately to a guest room and game room. Going right led to 2 more guest rooms and a bathroom at the end of the hall. I looked in every room and had to accept that somehow the dog made it outside, even though there was no doggy door, and every door and window had been closed and locked. So I searched the surrounding neighborhood for another hour before giving up. I was thinking about making flyers when I opened the front door and heard Buster scrambling towards me from the kitchen. I was ecstatic, of course, but I just couldn't wrap my head around how I could have missed him. I let Buster sleep in the bed with me that night. In hindsight, it was a huge mistake, but it made me feel better at the time. Things picked up at work though, and I soon forgot about all the strangeness surrounding this house. Clients called me constantly ... but we were getting a lot done, and I landed multiple large contracts in a row. I was working around the clock ... but I knew I'd be due a promotion once I returned to the home office. Several times I'd get lost in a phone call or spreadsheet and ... suddenly find that it was nighttime. I'd be so absorbed with work that I would block out Buster whining for food or to go outside. I started to set alarms to keep track ... but I had too many important clients to slow down. I was on top of the world, but my health was starting to suffer. I'd forget to eat and even sleep sometimes. There was always something else to do or someone to talk to. I even got better at taking care of Buster, better than I was taking care of myself at least. Then my good mood ended with a bang. Literally, Buster was whining behind me as I finished another spreadsheet. Then we both heard a door slam upstairs. For the first time since I brought him inside, Buster ran upstairs by himself. I almost called the cops, but I felt silly with the phone in my hand. I started to doubt I had heard anything at all. And if there were an intruder, surely Buster would have been making more noise. So I mustered all the courage I could manage and crept upstairs with frying pan as my weapon. It was dark upstairs. But enough moonlight was coming in from the downstairs windows for me to make out Buster standing in front of the bathroom. I had purposely closed every door when I last came through here, looking for the lost dog. But this door was now wide open. I flipped on the hallway light. But nothing happened. With no better ideas, I raised my frying pan high and walked slowly to the bathroom. There was no window in here, so it was pure darkness. Inside, I was terrified. Bizarrely, Buster just looked frozen. His tail stood straight up and he just stood there, pointed towards the door. I tried to take it as a good sign that he still wasn't barking. That's what finally got me through the threshold and into the bathroom. The whole time my eyes had been getting used to the darkness. And the bathroom was too small for there to have been anyone there without me noticing. I started to relax when I took a step forward into something sticky. I suddenly realized that I had my cell phone in my pocket. I pulled it out and turned it on to cast some light on the floor. I immediately dropped it at the sight of the bright red liquid that surrounded my feet. I fled the upstairs, and this triggered Buster to follow. This time I had no trouble calling the police. Thankfully, there was already a patrol car nearby, so 2 officers arrived within a couple of minutes. Their powerful flashlights cut through the darkness like knives. But they soon found nothing was wrong with the upstairs lights. Something did appear to be wrong with my pipes, though, as they called out from above that the puddle was just rusty water. Because of their insistence, I climbed up the stairs again and clearly saw a muddy brown puddle in the bathroom. The banging must have been from a pipe breaking. Both cops had a laugh at my expense, but were otherwise understanding. They even gave me a number of good plumber, though my cell phone was ruined after I dropped and left it in the puddle. I would have to use the one landline in the kitchen from now on. I let them out and promised to call the plumber first thing in the morning. Yet, as exhausted as I was, I couldn't go to sleep over that excitement, so I stayed up to draft some more important documents for my company. Before I knew it, Buster had made another mess in the living room. I was dead. Tired, and said some things to Buster that maybe I shouldn't have, and I did some things to him that I know I really shouldn't have. I decided to do something about the stress I had been under, and I spoke to my supervisor that same morning. To my surprise, they were happy to let me have the week off as a sort of mental vacation. Just like that, all my outstanding work was taken away. With nothing else to do, I tried to focus on Buster. I played games with him and fed him a bunch of treats to make up for my earlier neglect. Then I found the first message. I didn't notice it for some time since I had been avoiding the second floor. But I realized that I hadn't actually called the plumber. Before doing so, I went upstairs to see if things had gotten any worse. Instead, I immediately saw a message written in red on the hallway wall. It read, "Losing your mind." For a second, I kinda did. I was scared to death at the thought that someone had to have sneaked into my house while I was there, probably when I was sleeping. I won't bear repeating everything I said or did right after. Let's just say I hadn't become any braver since the banging. Eventually, I unlocked my bedroom door and made my way to the kitchen with Buster leading the way. I called the police again. Those same 2 officers were able to show up. And then, slowly, we cleared every inch of the house. Yet, we found no one. Everything was locked. No sign of forced entry. The police actually took me seriously, something that bewildered me at the time, and admitted that this isn't the first house in this neighborhood to experience this. There had been a series of break-ins where nothing was stolen. But the police officers still offered to have a car sit outside for the night. Even though I took them up on this, I soon realized that I'd never get to sleep tonight in this house. So I called my only friend in town, and really in the whole state, an old college roommate who coincidentally lived 30 minutes away. He offered to pick me and Buster up in a few hours, so I busied myself with packing up my suitcase. I didn't know how long I would need, so I pretty much packed everything I had brought with me to the house in the first place. I left my room to pick up some doggy toys when my friend called to say he was waiting outside. I decided to hang up the phone and meet him immediately. I needed the human company, and he could help me move my stuff. But the driveway was empty. There was no friend, no car. I called him back immediately, and he insisted he was outside. I listened to him get out of his car and walk up to the front door. He knocked, and I could hear the door open and an elderly woman greet him. My friend asked for my name and mentioned my uncle. The woman said she had never heard of either of us. After thanking her, my friend left and asked me if I had gotten all that. I told him I must have given him the wrong address. He rattled off the correct one and confirmed he was there. After asking him to wait, and I left the house again. I walked out to the street and looked back at the numbers written on the curb and on the mailbox. Only there weren't any numbers. Just a message, losing your mind. On the curb, written in red. The temptation to leave right away was great. I could just start walking and never stop. But I had to get my stuff and, more importantly, Buster, so I entered the house one last time. When I came back to the room, my suitcase was empty. Everything I had just spent the last hour packing up was back in its proper place. Despite how impossible this was, I focused on only one goal. We needed to leave. I put a leash on Buster and was shocked to see how haggard he was. I resolved to make it up to him when this was all over. I tried to leave out the front door like nothing was wrong. But I couldn't open it. The knob turned freely. But the deadbolt wouldn't slide back. I was really scared now. But Buster's presence helped. I knelt down to give him a hug, and he gave me an idea while licking my face. Whatever was happening, it sure wasn't the result of a maniac hiding in my house. Still, I didn't know what forces were actually opposing me, so I walked to the backyard and said loudly, "Well, Buster, time for a little walk." The glass door slid open easily. Buster bounded out happily. I guess it had been a long time since I let him outside. I followed more tentatively and, for the first time, examined the backyard closely. There was an iron fence surrounding the yard with another space between the bars that Buster could slip through. And then I saw it. A tree that grew too close to the fence and had several branches extending through and above it. I assumed the gate would be supernaturally locked too, so this was my exit. Buster didn't need any prodding. He waited patiently for me on the other side as I painfully pulled myself up and over the fence. I was suddenly aware of how weak and tired my recent lifestyle had made me. When I was in the process of climbing down the tree on the other side, Buster growled once, and then took off like a shot towards a nearby hill. I jumped down and gave chase. He disappeared over the top, and I scrambled to keep up on the surprisingly steep surface. Luckily, I found where someone had laid some stone bricks into the side for an easier way up. It was still steep enough that I had to focus on placing my feet correctly to keep from sliding, so I was looking down when my next reach up resulted in my hand grabbing carpet. Confused, I looked up to see the second floor landing. I looked down to see the rest of the stairs that led to the entrance hall and living room of the house. Buster was nowhere to be found. Demoralized and dead. Tired, I crawled the final steps and just sat on the landing for a while, occasionally calling for Buster. Eventually, the kitchen phone rang. Whatever ghosts were messing with me, I realized they couldn't stop outside forces from helping. I tumbled down the stairs in my haste and landed hard on the cold tiles below. But I was only dazed for a second and soon was in the kitchen with the phone in my hand. My wife's warm voice filled me with hope. She was concerned that she hadn't heard from me in a while. I couldn't recall the last time I had even tried. She was trying to tell me that my work hadn't heard from me in a week, while I tried to tell her to call the police. Her words gave me pause though. I asked, "What do you mean?" "I was given the week off." "Dear, I thought you were supposed to continue working as soon as you got there." Yeah. But they gave me a week off because of all the stress I've been under." "Wait a second. How long have I been out here?" "Honey, you've been gone almost 9 days now." My stomach sunk. But I didn't hesitate to say, "Listen, you need to call the cops. Something is wrong. I think I'm having a medical emergency." I had just been trying to come up with an excuse to limit the amount of follow-up questions. But I ended up realizing that this was actually the most likely explanation. Maybe I was just suffering from a gas leak or brain tumor. Ironically, either of those options seemed preferable than living in a haunted house. My wife asked, "Baby, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I thought I saw a shadow move out of the corner of my eye as I answered, "Yes, I'm okay. But no, I need help. There's something wrong about this house. You aren't making any sense. Just listen to me. Call the police and tell him my uncle's name. Tell them to come to this house and an ambulance might be needed. Please help me. Please help you. Pretty please." With a cherry on top, I stared at the phone in my hand as my wife's voice continued to come out of it. It sounded like her ... but in a mocking tone I've never actually heard from her before. She said, "Does your tummy hurt? When's the last time you ate? I wonder what Buster tastes like." I slammed the phone down ... But whatever it was on the other side was right. My stomach was hurting. I couldn't remember the last time I had eaten. On cue, I heard Buster whining from upstairs. Only after I started running towards the stairs did I notice just how bruised and sore my legs were from my spill down those steps. I pushed through the pain and climbed the stairs yet again. Buster was back in front of the bathroom, lying on his side and looking thinner than I had ever seen him. "Losing your mind" was written all over the hallway now, including on the ceiling and floor. I no longer had any doubt the messages were written in ... blood. Some of them were still dripping. I walked over and picked up Buster while a banging started at my front door. I would have jumped if Buster hadn't been weighing me down. I heard the front door open and whoever it was identified themselves as the police. I even recognized the voice as belonging to one of the officers who had visited previously. Why can't I remember his name? After calling out that I was upstairs, I turned with Buster and found the hallway stretched before me, many times its original length. Despite how thin he looked, Buster felt heavier than ever. I knew this was all just some sort of trick to not get me in touch with the police officer. I thought I must have really been talking to my wife. She had to have come through with calling the police, and the ghosts just distorted the end of the call. So I started my trek back to the stairs and shuffled my feet as fast as I could, yelling all the way. But then a voice answered the police officer. A woman's voice. My wife's voice. I could hear her say, "I'm sorry, my husband wasn't feeling well. He's resting in the bedroom. Can I help you?" I screamed as loud as I could just to get attention. But it was no use. I heard the officer say, "I'd like to check up on him, all the same." Sure, come in. He's right through here." It was right out of a nightmare ... I was sweating profusely while every step seemed to get me nowhere. I tried to speed up ... but the hallway just stretched further. And then I heard a man's blood-curdling ... scream from downstairs. Suddenly the hallway snapped back, and I found myself somehow right at the top of the stairs. My momentum couldn't be stopped. I fell down the stairs and landed hard on top of Buster. He howled in pain ... but at least he was alive. I saw a long thick trail of ... blood go around the corner and under my closed bedroom door. There was still a ... shadow of something under the door. I painfully crept to the kitchen and grabbed my trusty frying pan before making my way back to the bedroom door, as quietly as I could. My eyes watched the moving shadows nervously. Whatever was waiting there had killed a man. That meant it could kill me. But if it could have a physical impact, then surely it had to be susceptible to a physical impact too. So I raised the frying pan and slowly started to turn the handle. Before I made much progress, the door flew open on its own, and something turned ... Suddenly to me. I swung my frying pan down. The cop stood before me, a smile frozen on his face. We both looked down at the knife plunged into his chest. My hand was still wrapped around the handle. He fell to the side, and I fell backwards to sit heavily on the now clean floor. I was positive I had picked up the frying pan. I could remember its weight. But now I also remembered going to the kitchen and pulling out the knife. I seriously wondered if I was losing my mind. I looked down to find I had the knife in my hands again. I dropped it at once and crawled back to check on Buster. He wasn't moving. I put my head on his flank and was devastated to feel he was still warm ... but not breathing. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I did nothing for a long time. I was lethargic ... but somehow made it to the couch in the living room. I waited there until nightfall ... and then slept on the couch. When I woke up, I waited some more. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for ... but nothing horrible was happening to me while I waited. I wasn't in a hurry to change that. But the bodies of Buster and the cop were still there. I needed to do something. My stomach rumbled as I finally got off the couch. That was another problem with just staying put. First things first, I found a shovel in an outdoor closet attached to the backyard porch. Digging the hole was exhausting, so I settled for just burying Buster now. I planned on getting to the cop after finding something to eat. I picked up Buster and carried him outside. His fur was still so warm. It was hard to believe he was gone. But there was no life behind his big brown eyes. I gently laid him down in the hole and got to work. Some time later, I wandered into the kitchen and raided the pantry. The house was quiet apart from my efforts. Whenever I stopped moving, the silence was complete. I wondered if the ghosts had just been trying to make me a murderer after all. Now that their goal had been met, maybe they would leave me alone for a while. Just in time because I was starving and didn't need any more distractions. I opened a box of cereal and had a handful up to my lips when I paused. How could I tell I was actually eating what I was looking at? What if I had actually been opening a box of rat poison? I still wasn't sure what these ghosts were capable of. I imagined the food turning into worms after it was already in my mouth. With that thought, I threw the cereal to the ground and stomped off, no longer hungry. I needed to concentrate my efforts on leaving this place. Right on cue, I walked by the front door. It was wide open. Instinctively, I made a leap for it before stopping with my outstretched hand just a foot short of the door. This had to be another trick. I could see the door slamming shut in my face or even taking a few of my fingers with it. I could feel a breeze enter the house ... but I was too scared to move. This was the most impossible situation I had ever been in or even heard of. All of my senses had failed me before. However, my need for freedom eventually caused my feet to move. Upon slowly exiting the house, I saw the cop car just sitting in my driveway. The door was unlocked and the keys were sitting in the front seat. My mind went wild trying to explain the situation. Maybe the cop was secretly a murderer and had killed previous owners of this house. Maybe his sacrifice helped them move on. I couldn't think of any other explanation for my good luck at the time. So I just pushed my misgivings down and got in. I drove out of the neighborhood without incident. But I had new problems. I was in an unfamiliar city, driving a cop car, with no money or other belongings on me, and I had no idea what to do next. So I kept driving. It felt good to be free of that house. It felt good to see the sun. So I kept driving. On and on. Left turn. Right turn. Left turn. Right turn. No idea where I'm going. And then I realized I hadn't seen any other cars on the road for some time. Where was everyone? Where was I? The sinking feeling happened again, in the pit of my stomach ... but also around my whole body. I sunk back into the car seat ... and then realized I was sitting in an armchair, back in the living room of my uncle's house. My arms were up like I was still holding onto a steering wheel. I started to cry with frustration as I stood up and screamed. How long had I been sitting there with a stupid grin, moving my arms up and down like a madman? I turned around and saw my work laptop on the dining room table. It was on and glowing at me. I walked over to it and saw that something was already written down in this post. It read, "Lost your mind. Good. Now you won't mind losing the rest." Suddenly my fist felt weighed down. I raised it to find another kitchen knife in my hand. I dropped it immediately. I erased the message and started to type out a request for help. I ignored the screen and just focused on the keys. But I kept hitting them wrong, and another message slowly formed. "I'm sorry. I've disappointed you all. For the last time, goodbye." I could have screamed again ... But I noticed something had changed. I wasn't in the dining room anymore. I was in the study. I kept writing and writing and writing, and my own words started to come out. I have sent out emails requesting help. I've posted on the local police department's Facebook for assistance, and I've just tried to keep writing no matter what. This is my latest attempt to keep my sanity. Whenever I've tried to take a break, I find myself in a new room with new horrors descending on me. Once I opened the study door out to a hellish landscape, and almost stepped out onto lava. I wasn't sure if it was all an illusion ... But I didn't even want to have a vision of my feet burning, so I just closed the door and resumed writing. I'm not even sure this is all because of ghosts. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and the truth is simply that I have no idea what's going on. As I've gone over these crazy events, I've realized that I can't recall my uncle's name, or what he looked like. I'm not sure I ever had an uncle. I'm trying to think really hard about how I came here. Did I fly? Drive? I can't remember. Have I always been here? Even weirder, I can't remember my realtor's name or even what gender they are. I've met them, in person, several times. Why don't I know things I should? I can't even remember the name of my daughters or my wife. Am I even a father? Am I even a person? I know I must be because here I am writing in this small study. But now that I think about it, I can't remember who my parents are, what they look like, or anything about my childhood. Now, I just remember this house and all the nightmares, waking and otherwise, I've experienced here. I'm feeling a lot like I was back in the cop car. I found a way forward ... But I really don't know what to do next. This is not a way to live, and I'm getting more and more tired. I'm so hungry, and I'm finding it harder to focus. I keep hearing voices, and they're getting louder. I know if I stop writing, I won't last long. But I'm running out of things to say. My hands are tired. I'm tired. So tired. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. I need to keep writing. But I don't know what to say anymore. What's my name? I don't know. I'll die if I stop writing. I'll die if I stop working. Absurdicum nox the quickproven facts of it lazy dogs. Dogs. Buster. I miss Buster. I wish I could pet him one last time. But was he ever real? Is anything? I'm so tired. So hungry. I need to focus. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy goodbye. The quick brown I'm sorry jumped over pointed you lazy dog should be. I'm quick I've jumped pedisap feel last time lazy dogs I'm sorry. Jumped over disappointed you lazy. For the lazy dogs, goodbye. I'm sorry. I've disappointed you all. For the last time, goodbye. Let's move on to our next disturbing tale. Story number 2. Run. Run, run. And if you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, don't stop. It's only been an hour since everyone on Earth, as far as I could tell, heard those same words. I was already walking through the park when I heard them, and after seeing what happens, I won't be stopping anytime soon. It's been 2 hours now. I've kept walking. I'm tired. But stopping is not an option. Some people tried driving. But the act of getting in a car requires stopping, even for the briefest moment. And as those already driving when they heard the rules soon found out, it's impossible to move indefinitely in a vehicle, especially in a crowded city. Their screams kept me moving. It's been for hours now, and I'm exhausted, with the only thing pushing me forward being the fear of what awaits when I stop. And yes, I mean when, proven by plenty of those around me, eventually I'll have to stop. Some have just given up, accepting their fate, only to immediately regret the decision. Some just couldn't take the screams anymore, and most simply don't see the point of continuing. And with every step, I'm starting to become more like the latter. It's been about 6 hours, and for the first time I saw what happens up close. I was walking aimlessly down an alley, trying to get away from the madness, when I saw a young man no more than 16 crying. It didn't even register at first to me until he made eye contact with me. He had stopped moving. His eyes were bloodshot, and not just whites around his pupils, I mean the entirety of his eyes were crimson red. Black tears streamed down his expressionless face. And then he smiled. A wide toothy smile that would have screamed of joy if it wasn't followed by animalistic screams that would give the biggest horror. Fanatic nightmares. I wish I could say witnessing his dying moments was the most horrific thing to happen to me today. But then it hit me, the realization that I had stopped moving. Story 3. Emergency alert. Do not look outside your windows. Emergency alert. Warning, this is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. Citizens of the world, lock all doors. Close all of your blinds. Do not go near any windows. Do not look outside. Do not leave your house. Stay in a room with no windows. Gather what supplies you can. Turn all of the lights off. Do not open the door for anything. When I first heard it, it didn't even sound real. It sounded fake, like something in a horror movie. But it was an emergency, so I decided I probably should do what they tell me. I grabbed a flashlight, pillow, my phone, charger, food and basic other stuff to keep me entertained while this stuff happened. I had no idea what was going on. But once I got into my bathroom and got comfy, I texted my parents asking them if they got the alert. They also did. They said citizens of the world. Did they actually broadcast that to world? I asked myself. So I texted an internet friend that lives across the world, and they said they got it too. Same exact message. And to be honest, it's kinda scary. They tell you what to do. But not what's going on, and people are scared of that. 20 minutes later. Emergency alert. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. Unknown creatures have been knocking on people's doors and been killing people that open the door. There is 5 major hotspots. Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Toronto, Moscow, and London. They have been located all around. But it seems as if they are attacking those first. This is an invasion. Stay in your rooms. Do not open any doors. Do not look outside. They can kill you instantly with just a look. May God help us all. Emergency nuke sirens are going off. Tornado sirens are going off. What is going on? Is this a prank? How can an invasion be real? Are aliens real? How can I even comprehend that? I had car alarms going off. I hear things being destroyed. They are here. They are killing. It sounds like a war zone out there. But without any guns. What can the government do? Just shoot them. But they would die looking at them. There's no possible way we could ever survive this. We are going to die. I text my parents, but no answer. I text my brother and sister, no answer. I start to panic now. What if my family is gone? And all I can do is listen to other people's families get murdered. The nuke sirens have started again, and they are very loud, shaking my whole apartment. I wonder what the other people in my building are thinking. Probably like me. This is it. This is the end of the world. Everyone on this planet will die. I hear a knock on my door. I don't answer it. I hear someone screaming for me to open it. I mean, it sounded human. Should I open it? No. That would be stupid. Emergency alert, this is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. The extraterrestrial are attacking every major city in the world. There is a lot of them. We have not found out what they want. Stay inside. Millions if not billions are ... dead ... Stay inside. It's as if the government have given up now. There's no way to fight, and these messages are less helpful each time they come on. If billions are dying, then I don't know how we can survive this. I mean, I have so far. But it doesn't sound like for long. I hear buildings being destroyed. I hear cars being destroyed. My building has been hit a few times. I'm hearing my world crumble before me. At this point, there's no reason to hope anymore. There's so many dying, and there is so much chaos, they will get everyone. I would love to know what one of these things looks like. But if I see them, I die. I hope someone takes a picture, and if we do survive, I want to see it. I want to see what's killing us. But the end is nowhere near, and I don't even know how many people we have left. Should I just kill myself? Maybe I should die before they get me. I don't want to die by those things. Plus, what if I do survive and get survivor's guilt? Then there's no way I emergency alert. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. The extraterrestrial have left and left billions of people ... dead ... If you are alive, please tap the button on your phone now. If on a radio, tune to 104 and state your name and city. We will update you in 20 minutes. There's no way I would want to live. That's what I was going to say. And yet, somehow, I'm actually alive. Do I want to die now? Well, no. But how many people are alive? What did these things want? Why did they attack us? There's too many questions to even ask right now. At this point, all we can do is try to figure out some numbers and restart society. How can a world like ours recover from something like this? How long until society is normal again? Will humanity ever be the same? I don't know. What I do know is that I could have lost everything. I will text my friends and family and come back with some numbers. Emergency alert, this is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. We have reported a little over 1 billion people accounted for. Not every country has the technology, so we will investigate those countries in the coming months. We do not understand what these creatures wanted, nor what they have taken. In the next month or two we will be figuring out the next steps for humanity. May God help us all. Only 3 people I know survived. My sister, my uncle, and my best friend. Everyone else is ... dead ... I want to kill myself. But at the same time, humanity needs me. We need each other to continue human life. Only time will tell what to do next. If there is anything next. Edit. It's 2 weeks later. The guilt is too much. I'm a fucking coward. Goodbye. Story 4. My son was diagnosed with something far worse than cancer. Mommy, my privates hurt. Was there any way for me to know how frightening those 4 words were at the time? Like any mother would do, I got on my knees. Let me see. My 5-year-old son pulled down his pants and showed me. As I looked, a shock of fear went through me. His testicles were red and swollen. I tried not to panic and thought about what it could be. Nothing, other than the worst-case scenario, came to mind. The night before, during bath time, his privates looked normal. What the hell happened? Trying my best to not scare my son, quietly, I told him to pull up his pants and put on his shoes. We arrived at the doctor's office 20 minutes later. After the examination, the doctor sent my son into the waiting room and called me in to have a private conversation. Private conversation, no pun intended. Is it bad? I asked. The doctor gave me a look that I had scarcely ever seen. As if what I just asked was the biggest understatement of all time. Is it cancer? Please sit down, he said. I haven't seen anything like this during my time as a doctor, that's for sure. I've already had a colleague of mine on the phone. We're gonna need an ultrasound. Tears welled up in my eyes. Tell me he's going to be okay. I can't say for sure. But I can tell you that if it is some type of cancer, testicular is the easiest to treat. He paused. You said he's 5 years old. I nodded and said, I don't understand how his. You know. He hasn't reached puberty yet, so. This can't be normal for a boy his age. Can it? Before we jump to any conclusions, the doctor said, we need to see the ultrasound. Before paying for the visit, the doctor handed me a note with the date and location of the hospital where the ultrasound would be done. He also advised that I set an ice pack over my son's groin every 2 hours in case the irritation got worse. First thing the next morning, I drove to the address on the note and met with a man named Dr. Jasper Harris. Hello, he said to me. And then he looked down at my son. He kneeled to his level. Hello. What's your name? My son answered. The small talk was making me nervous. All I wanted was to get the procedure done and over with. The faster this would get done, the faster my baby would get back to normal. Dr. Harris led us both into a room and gave my son a hospital gown. I sat in the waiting room with a book while my son was scanned. Though I was looking at the pages, I wasn't reading. My mind was elsewhere, on my son. Later, Dr. Harris came into the waiting room with a dour look on his face. Come with me, he said. He brought me into a room full of medical computers. Please take a seat. He pulled up a chair next to a large screen. He then showed me the X-rays. Oh my God, I said and covered my mouth. The 10 rays showed two testicles that were larger than any you'd see on a grown man. Both of them came up white on the ultrasound. Surgery must be done immediately. Dr. Harris said, I've never seen anything like this. It seems as if the tumors have encapsulated his testicles. I whimpered in the chair. A hand rested on my shoulder to console me. It didn't help. Please, I said, save my son. Nothing could be done that day because of complications due to the coronavirus. I was lucky enough to even have gotten an appointment for the ultrasound that day, so I counted my blessings and stayed patient. At this point, my son was almost completely in the dark about the whole thing, or so I thought. We were driving home from the hospital. He was sitting in his booster seat when he asked, Mama. I looked at his reflection in the mirror. Yes. When we die, do we go to heaven like Grandma says? I was speechless. What was I supposed to say? And how did the idea of ... death get on his mind? Did the doctor say something to him? Was it just a coincidence? Or was there some kind of primal intuitiveness that made him aware of how severe his illness was? A single tear slipped down my cheek. I don't know, baby. He lay there on the operating table, unconscious. The surgeon and his helpers were shuffling about, preparing for the incision of the cancerous bulbs hanging between my son's legs. Before my son was put under, he cried and made it clear that he wanted me in the room while the surgery was performed. I want you with me, he'd said. To me it sounded as if he hadn't finished the sentence, as if he was trying to say, I want you with me in case I die. I stood in the corner of the cold operation room, wearing a medical apron, rubber gloves, face mask, and a pair of goggles. I was looking at my feet, waiting for the inevitable. Would he be a freak to his peers? An outcast to society? Would he ever find someone to love him? Not as a mother, ... but as a lover. These strange, unwanted thoughts floated in my mind like a rocket on a predetermined trajectory through the star systems of the cosmos. They told me not to watch if I didn't want to. I wasn't, ... But once I heard the scalpel cut through flesh, there was this sound. A wriggling sound. A sloppy, greasy, writhing sound. The bodies of the medical professionals surrounded my son, so I was unable to see him. I stood on my toes ... But I still wasn't tall enough to see. "Oh my God," a nurse said. "What the?" The surgeon said through his covered face. Wet slapping sounds came. Something was dropping on the room's floor. Blood ... The doctor and nurses stood back. One nurse yipped and dropped a stainless steel tool she had been holding. She ran out of the room, the door swinging behind her. The sound of wet drip still came. I looked at the surgeon's feet. Something was wiggling on the floor. Snakes. No, too small for that. Centipede? No, they didn't have legs. As the surgeon and the remaining nurse moved away from the table, I was able to see everything. Everything. Cracked open like eggs. "Honey, breakfast is ready. Coming, Mom." "Mommy." "Yes." My privates hurt. Parasite. Wet goo and slime from a world far beyond the comprehension of the human imagination spewed out from between my baby's legs. But no. Let's not be too melodramatic. I'll just say it clearly and simply. My son's testicles had a nest of fucking worms inside of them. They writhed and squirmed and moved and slopped over the table, down to the floor, and over the shoes of the surgeon and nurse. And guess what? Next thing I remember was blackness. I fainted and cracked my head on the tile floor. I was removed from the room and woke up in a chair located in the large waiting area. I remember squinting because the chair I was sitting in faced the windows where the sunset was. Where was I? Right, the hospital, 3rd floor. A nurse with scrubs that were a size too small for her came over with a cup of water. How did they allow nurses to wear that? Her boobs were practically hanging ... "Ma'am." I blinked. And then my eyes focused on the nurse's face. "Why, yes." I said. "Please drink this, my son." I bolted straight up. "Where's my son?" "Those things." "Is he all right?" Water tipped over the rim of the paper cup as she put a hand on my shoulder to sit me back down. "He's fine," she answered. "There were just a few minor complications." "Minor complications?" "Haha, very funny. Wiggle wiggle woo." "He lost some blood. But the procedure is over. You can see him in a few hours." I talked to the surgeon about what happened at the operation table. The only answer I got regarding what was inside of my son was, "We're not completely sure what they are or what species of parasitic organisms they belong to. We've run some tests to see if he still had any left inside ... But we're not sure if he's clean. We'll have to put him on mebendazole. It's the best we can do for now." And that was it. The men in the black suits showed up to interview me, my son, the surgeon, and both nurses. Who were they? The fuck would I know? It's been 2 months since the operation. My son had to stay in a rehabilitation center for about a month and a half, which wasn't fun for either of us. I'm now on anxiety medication. It started the day after I took my son home for the first time in a while. I just lay awake at night worrying about him. Frequently, like every 5 minutes, I would get out of bed and go into his room to check on him. I wouldn't get any sleep, and I had to spend time away from work. Things have been hard lately because of it. Child support is next to nothing. No thanks to my ex-husband. At least it seems like the medication is working. So now I'm able to sleep. They sent my son home with a clean bill of health minus to testicles, or so they thought. I'm sitting in a waiting room once again. Yesterday, while eating a bowl of cereal and watching the Idiot Box, my son stepped out of his bedroom and shuffled into the kitchen. He said 4 words. "Mommy, my eyes hurt." And that was just the beginning of tonight's ... horror compilation. This one is called Don't Google Yourself. Horror story. Don't Google yourself. Why? Because you may not like what you find. One day, I was bored and decided to search for my own name on Google. I have quite a rare name, so I didn't expect to find many results. Imagine how surprised I was when I came across a website that had my full name in the domain. My name. When I clicked the link, it brought me to a message board. I looked at the profile of the website owner and found out that the person was the same age as me and had the same hobbies and interests. There weren't any posts on the message board. But I was intrigued, so I saved it in my favorites. It was about a month later when I went back to the website. This time, it had more content. There were some diary entries, mostly random things like the weather was nice today, or I'm so bored in work. Things of that nature. However, as time went on, I began to notice more and more coincidences. The person lived in the same city as I did. It struck me as rather strange that two people with the exact same rare name would be living in the same city at the same time. At one point, I noticed that the contents of the diary were quite similar to my own life. One day, I went to a baseball game, and when I checked the website that evening, I found that the owner of the site had gone to the same ball game. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, tens of thousands of people in the city supported the same baseball team. It began to seem like much more than a simple coincidence. Whenever I checked the website, I would notice little biographical details that seemed too close for comfort. For example, the owner mentioned their pet dog, and the dog's name was the same as the dog I had when I was a child. The website owner posted a picture of their car. It was the same model of car I had been driving when I was in college. They talked about eating at a certain restaurant. It was the same restaurant I had gone to all the time when I was working at my previous job. One day, when I looked at the message board, people had written messages to the owner saying happy birthday. That day, it was my birthday as well. I decided to write on the message board for the first time, just out of curiosity. I was going to wish the owner a happy birthday and tell them we had the same name. However, when I tried to write something, I realized that there was nowhere to type your message. It wasn't a message board at all, just a static page. That's odd, I thought to myself. In other words, whoever owned the website had gone to a lot of trouble to make it seem as if it was an interactive site. As if there were other people posting on it. When in actual fact, all the content must have been created by the owner. Why on earth would someone do that? I wondered. I decided to send an email to the owner. It read, "Hi there. Believe it or not, we both share the same name. Nice to meet you." It was just a friendly email. The next day, when I tried to look at the website, I discovered that it was gone. It seemed like it had been deleted. Then, I opened my mailbox. There was one reply. When I looked at it, a chill ran down my spine. It just read, "Found you." And that was just the beginning of tonight's horror compilation. Our next story. My son's teacher has been giving him some strange homework. I have recently had to move to another city due to work. My family and I, which consists of me, my wife, and my 9-year-old son, Dylan, were suddenly uprooted from our quiet life and had to move to a busier city, which none of us were used to. My wife had to find another job in the city, and my son had to leave friends behind and start at a new school, which I hoped would all be worth it for the sizable pay rise that I was receiving. We have been moved into our new house for about a month now, and everyone seems to be adjusting to the new lifestyle that we now have. My wife has found a new job, which she enjoys, and she has made a number of new friends there. My son has also settled in well to the new school. He is in the 3rd grade, and, due to being in a busier city, is in a larger class than he is used to. I don't think he minds though. He has already made a few friends that have helped him adjust to the new school. His teacher, Mrs. Wagner, was a younger woman, around 30, who Dylan seemed to really like. He would always come home and tell me and my wife all about the fun he had at school and the fun lessons that Mrs. Wagner would teach. I had only met her the once, when I dropped Dylan off at school on the first day, and as far as I could tell, she was a very nice lady. Every night, Dylan would come home with different homework that he would have to complete before school the next day. I'm not a massive fan of homework ... But it seemed like the homework that Mrs. Wagner always said was quite simple tasks that could easily be completed in a night. One night, Dylan had to ask a parent find out what their parents did for work and ask 3 questions about their job. And another night, he had to research their favorite animal and find out 3 interesting things about it. It was always simple tasks like that, or it was simple worksheets that Dylan could complete in half an hour or so. Every night, I would ask Dylan what his homework was for that night. And then I would help him with it if he needed help. That's when I noticed the homework becoming a little bit strange. One night, in Dylan's 3rd week of being in the new class, he came home, looking upset. I asked him, when he entered the kitchen, what was wrong, and he told me that everything was okay. I then asked him what his homework was for that night, and he told me that he didn't have any for that night. This was surprising, because he had some sort of homework task every single night he had been in Mrs. Wagner's class. So it was strange that he suddenly didn't. Dylan then left the kitchen and went into his room, shutting the door behind himself. He didn't usually close the door, ... But I thought that he must have wanted some privacy. I could tell, though, that something was wrong, ... But he didn't want to tell me. Dylan spent most of the night in his room, apart from dinner time, when me and my wife told him he had to sit at the dinner table with us. He seemed to be in a better mood during dinner and was fairly talkative and making jokes, like he normally did. After dinner though, he went back to his room and closed the door. We decided to let him stay in there for a while ... But after an hour or two, I went in to see him and let him know that it was time to go to bed. I walked down to his room, opened the door, and when I looked inside, I saw that he had already fallen asleep over his workbook. I quietly walked over to him to gently wake him up and move him to his bed ... But that's when I saw it. The homework task that was set for that night. The title that was written in Dylan's workbook was "Would I miss my parents if I no longer lived with them?" At first, I was taken aback. This was a very weird task to set for a group of 9 and 10-year-olds. I didn't really know how to react to this. I continued to read, though, to see what else he had written. He had written, "I would miss both my mom and dad very much. I love them both a lot, and they help me with everything. I love spending dinner time with them. But I would probably love someone else as much as them if I had to, like you were saying today, Mrs. Wagner." When I read the final sentence, I felt chills down my spine. I would probably love someone else as much as them if I had to. The words struck me like a brick to the face. What had Mrs. Wagner been telling my son? What was the purpose of telling him these things? I decided, probably stupidly, not to tell my wife about what I had found. She would worry, and she probably had a right to worry, ... But I didn't want to concern her. I decided that I would instead confront Mrs. Wagner tomorrow and ask her about this strange homework task. The next day, I took Dylan's school like I normally do, except this time I got out and walked up to the classroom with him. I saw Mrs. Wagner, alone in the classroom, as I entered the room, and she greeted me with a smile. "Hey, how are you?" she said as I entered the classroom. "How is Dylan settling in?" I answered that he was settling in well. But I did have one or two concerns. She asked what they were, and so I explained. "I was just curious about the homework you said yesterday. The one about how much they would miss their parents. I am just concerned because it is a very strange and confronting thing to ask a group of 3rd graders. I also noticed that Dylan wrote that he might have to love someone else if he had to, like you told him. I would really like you to explain that." I asked her, quite bluntly. "Oh, that," she replied as she let out a slight laugh. "Yesterday, I was teaching about how parents love and protect their kids, ... But also how that there are also other people that would be there to help them if they need it. I wasn't satisfied with this answer and was about to question her further when ... Suddenly a large group of school children entered the classroom. They were all walking into rows. They all greeted Mrs. Wagner and greeted her one by one. They seemed very well behaved, almost too well behaved. I then saw Dylan take a seat next to one of the students who was staring to the front of the classroom with their arms crossed. At the entrance of the rest of the class, Dylan's behavior seemed to change. He seemed to sit up a bit straighter, and his eyes widened as he began staring at the rest of the class. I looked around and noticed that all of the students were staring at the same spot. All their eyes were pointed at Mrs. Wagner. Something didn't feel right. But I knew that Dylan needed to stay at school, and this was probably some sort of morning routine they had. I left, still with concerns about the homework. But I decided to wait and see if any other strange homework would be set before I would take this matter further. I decided that I would pick Dylan up from school, though, and so I left work a little bit early and drove over to the school. The school bell rang, and soon all of the students were dismissed and starting to come out of the school gate. Most of the kids came running and screaming out of the gate, apart from Mrs. Wagner's class. They all walked out in a line, walking in time. This disturbed me. I had never seen a group of students so well behaved, especially even after the school bell had rung. Dylan walked over to the car and hopped in. He didn't say anything and sat in his seat, staring straight forward. I asked him if he was okay, and he just replied with the word yes. I drove him home, in silence, and when we got home and inside, Dylan went straight to his room and closed the door. I knew something was definitely wrong. But I didn't know what. I decided to leave him alone until my wife got home, and I would tell her everything that had been going on. She got home about half an hour later, and I sat her down and explained everything that had been going on. She sat and listened and started to look more and more worried with every word I said. Maybe I should go and talk to him. He might like that, she said once I had finished explaining everything. I agreed, and so she went into his room, and I waited out in the lounge room for them to finish talking to each other. 15 minutes later, Dylan walked out of his room and into the lounge room. He was holding a small workbook, and he said, "Can you help me with my homework, Dad?" "Of course, come and show me what you need help with," I replied. He held out the notebook, and I took it out of his hands and read the homework task for tonight. Written on the top line of the page was one task: research the best way to inject your parents with anesthetic. I barely finished reading the sentence when I felt the sharp pain in my neck, and I looked down and saw the needle sticking out of the side of my neck. Dylan was holding the other end of the needle, a blank stare on his face. Everything started to go black, and the last thing I remember seeing is Dylan staring down at me as I lay on the floor. I don't know how long I was out, ... But I was awoken by my wife screaming and crying. I woke up, startled, as she continued to ... scream ... He's gone. Dylan's gone. She kept screaming. I looked up at her, and the first thing I saw was the small pin prick that was on the side of her neck. She had been injected too. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to find my son. I tried my best to get up, ... But I think the drug hadn't properly worn off yet, because I still couldn't move properly. I could move my arms, so I managed to get my phone out of my pocket and dial the police. I explained to them what had happened, and they said that they would send officers out and would begin looking for Dylan. I then noticed that it was already 9 in the morning, and so I decided to ring the school and see if Dylan had gone there. I dialed, and a lady answered the phone. I asked if she had seen Dylan from Mrs. Wagner's class. "No, I am very sorry, ... But we haven't seen him today. In fact, we haven't seen anyone from Mrs. Wagner's class today. They are all absent. Which is very odd because Mrs. Wagner hasn't shown up for work either today," the lady on the phone said. I hung up and sat in silence for a moment. My wife had heard what the lady said, so she also just sat there in total silence. That was all 3 weeks ago, and Dylan is still missing, along with Mrs. Wagner, and the rest of his classmates. All the parents of the kids in Dylan's class have the same story. They were injected with something by their own children, and when they woke up, their child was gone. No one knows where they went. But we all had the same questions. Were they all together? Was Mrs. Wagner with them? Was this all planned? Why were all the students acting so strange in the day leading up to this? Were they hypnotized or drugged? Or maybe something even more sinister was happening? Ready for more? Here comes the next story. Story number 7. My brother didn't leave his room for 3 days. My parents wouldn't let me check on him. On the 3rd night, Jacob didn't come out of his room. I got the courage to bring it up to Mom. People don't sleep for this long, I said. She was cooking a casserole, the 6th one this week. We were running out of fridge space for the leftovers, ... But she kept making more. I would watch her from the corner of the kitchen, her posture curved and her newly grayed hair hanging over the food. I walked over and tugged at her sleeve. But she didn't respond. She was slathering butter on the top crust. Mom, I said, did you hear me? He needs his strength, she said. We can't be bothering him. Before I could say anything, Dad walked in. His eyes were red and swollen, ... But he was smiling. He had 3 cans of Coke in his hands. I'm starving, he said. I still have the taste of that horrible cafeteria food in my mouth. You would think hospitals had good food for how much money they make, Mom said. I know, right? Dad said. He placed the Cokes on the counter. Mom didn't want us to go near Jacob's room, ... But I was getting worried. I peered out from the kitchen. His room hung at the end of the hallway like an abandoned lighthouse, the only sign of life being the NY Yankees poster taped to his door. Near the ground, there was a small sliver of space to see if he had turned on his lights. It was still dark, as it had been for the last 3 days. I turned back to Mom. Shouldn't we check on him? I asked. I don't know why places like Wendy's or Burger King don't put up little shops in hospital, Dad went on. I mean, you have hundreds of people who are stuck there for days on end. That's consistent business. It's all politics, Mom said. They sign these big contracts that are impossible to break. Right. That makes sense. Right. Dad was standing next to Mom now, his face inches from the casserole. He took a long sniff. Aha, he said. Smells great. Do you want some of the leftovers while this finishes in the oven? She asked. I think we still have some from yesterday. Wasn't the spinach and ricotta one good? Very good. Very good, he said. I couldn't stop eating it. Jacob's gonna devour these when he gets the appetite, Mom said. I turned back and took a step into the hallway. The distance between me and his room felt long and narrow, like a high wire. When I got away from the casserole smell, I hit a different smell. It reminded me of old gym socks. Even with Mom's array of candles and incense, I still smelled it. It cut through everything. The last time I saw Jacob was on the drive home from his treatment. His face was a pale green and his eyes kept rolling back. Mom said. I had to keep talking to him to keep his focus. I told him about my friends from school and how they keep pranking the teacher by putting tacks on her chair. It wasn't true. I saw it on a TV show once, ... But I was running out of material. It didn't matter though. Jacob didn't even respond. All he did was cough. Pink drool was spilling onto his t-shirt. Danny, Mom said, why don't you heat up some of those leftovers? We're all craving that spinach and ricotta casserole. I can't stop thinking about it, Dad said. I was dreaming about it last night. I ignored them. I kept my focus on my brother's door. I didn't dream about the casserole like Dad. I kept having a different dream. My brother was running into my room and flicking my ear. It was a game we used to play. We would tiptoe up to the other's door, then wait for our moment. Then, the attacker ran in and got 1 or 2 good flicks before retreating. In my dream though, Jacob would run in and flick me. But I wouldn't move. I just stood there. He would flick and laugh, then flick some more. Sometimes, he would flick so hard my ear flew off. "Earth to Danny," Dad said, snapping his fingers in my face. He was standing in front of me, blocking my view of Jacob's door. "Do you mind heating up for portions of the casserole in case Jacob wants some? We're going to eat that before this next casserole because we want to make sure Jacob's able to try it because, in my opinion, it was definitely one of your mom's best." I looked up at him and held my eye contact. I couldn't say what I was thinking, so I wanted Dad to feel it. Maybe, if I stared long enough, my feelings would translate. But Dad looked at me for only a moment, then away. In that brief connection though, I saw something I didn't want to see. It was like staring down the tunnel of the world's deepest well. "Come on now," he said. He grabbed my shoulders and turned me around. His voice got heavier. "You're going to want to heat up each piece individually, because if you do them all at once then you won't get even heat through the pieces and you'll probably have a couple that are too hot and others that are too cold ... And then, Jacob won't get the full picture of how good these casseroles are." Dad let go of my shoulders and walked ahead of me ... But I stayed in the hallway a moment longer. I turned to look at my brother's door one last time. I fantasized about walking up to it and going inside. But I was afraid Mom would yell at me. Besides, I never liked going in there. He had a puke bucket next to his bed which always had pink splatters in it, and there were always clumps of hair on his pillows. Back before the last hospital visit, Mom would make me go in there and talk to him. But I always made up some excuse, like I had a cold and didn't want to get him sick. When I couldn't get out of it, I would stay in there for a few minutes and watch him try to breathe. I would tell him about some TV episode I saw, then run back to my room. I looked up. I thought I was walking back to the kitchen. But I was moving toward the door. I didn't want to. But I kept moving, like my limbs were controlled by a puppeteer. I put my hand on the doorknob. I turned. The gym sock smell filled my head like helium. Through the darkness, I could make out a sliver of my brother's face. The soft evening light fell on him. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. His arms were straight as rulers, and his fingers curled like a blooming rose. I walked aside of his bed. Red spit fell off his lips. He looked like a frowning clown. I flicked his ear. It was hard. I walked out and closed the door behind me. As I walked back, I seemed to forget what the inside of his room looked like. With the door closed, it could be anything. Jacob could be doing jumping jacks, or reading comic books, or plotting his next ear flick attack. When I walked into the kitchen, I heated up for plates of spinach and ricotta casserole. When they were done, I wrapped Jacob's plate in aluminum foil and put it in the oven to keep warm. Then, Mom, Dad, and I sat in the dining room and ate in silence. And that was just the beginning of tonight's ... horror compilation. Story 8. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. At first it was cute and hilarious to tell her what she said. It was harmless nonsense. The sky is folding. Or we need to raise the ground. We talked the next day about if she remembered her dream ... But she never did. I wish I knew what she meant by we need to raise the ground. Some context, our nightly routine is for us to start out cuddling ... and then give up once it gets to hot. Then we're usually both on our sides, back to back. She would fall asleep before I do, and so I would hear the full range of her nightly musings. Honestly, at first, I was eager to hear what she said. It was always funny to tell her and our friends what she would say while deep in the throes of REM. But now I'm done. I'd prefer she not talk anymore. How am I going to sleep after what happened last night? Last night around 11 p.m. she was asleep and I was still up reading. Back to back, I hear her mumble something under her breath. I couldn't quite make out what she said ... But I lean over from my book to peek at her face and she is sleeping soundly. I return to my book, get absorbed back into its pages. At some point, I fall asleep. Next thing I know, I'm woken up by my girlfriend talking at full volume. I open my eyes, and at some point in the night, both of us have turned to lay face to face. My girlfriend's eyes are wide open. She is staring right at me, mere inches from my face. But her eyes are vacuous, like she is looking through me. These eyes, man, it's like she was straining to widen them as much as possible. Those are the eyes I fell in love with, and right now they are scaring the absolute piss out of me. My heart rate skyrockets, and chock full of adrenaline, I throw off the covers and jump out of bed. Looking at her, her eyes follow me like a painting. But her body stays still. For 1 second I decided that my booklight was keeping her awake, and what she had said was, "Can you please turn that off?" Now out of bed and looking at her, she's not right. Her body hasn't moved ... But her eyes dart from looking at me to looking around the room. I dare to ask her, "Are you all right?" No response. Those eyes look at me when I speak, though. They are now deadlocked, looking right into my eyes. Her breathing hasn't changed. That is a sleep breathing for sure. That's when, while looking right at me, she says in a deep voice, "Come back to bed, dearie." My girlfriend has never called me dearie before. We have pet names, sure, but they range from pumpkin, baby, to cupcake. Dearie sounds like something my grandmother would call me. I decide I'll get more information before I climb back into bed with a potentially possessed girlfriend. "Are you awake, sweetie?" No response. The eyes dart from me to the wall, to the door ... and then the ceiling. I'm about to nope out of the room when her wide open eyes roll to the back of her head. The white from those eyes stands out in the dim radiance of the booklight. No pupils in sight, she insists. Of course I'm awake, come back to bed. With a subtle tap of the fingers on the comforter. Looking at her fingers now, I'm starting to come around. She's never sleepwalked before. Surely she is awake now if she is moving her hands. But looking at her fingers, it as though she is pretending to have control. They are all going in different directions, one finger pointing straight down, and the others to the side. Those hands are not my girlfriend's hands. They are simulating normal movement as best they can, though. I say, "I'm going to get a drink of water, baby. Be right back. Can I get you anything?" Fully planning to run out of the house the moment I'm over the threshold. But my normally agreeable and sweet girlfriend decides I'm not allowed to leave. As serious as cancer, she says, in that deep ... Horror. Voice, "Take one step out of that door, and I will rip out your throat and shit down your neck." Shock ... But understanding the importance of not letting this beast know I am in trouble, I reply, "As interesting as a proposition as that is, I think I'm going to ... And thinking quickly, I grab my water bottle from the nightstand. This doesn't please my girlfriend, as she decides to start screaming and fingering her way towards me. It is a supernatural ... scream. So high-pitched and bird-like, I feel as though my neighbors 3 houses down were going to ask us if they heard that last night. As fast as I can muster, I unscrew the lid and douse her in water. Like I knew what I was doing. Her eyes close, her garbled appendages normalize, and she is back asleep. I'm going to sleep on the couch for a while, maybe forever. She understand when she's awake. https www.reddit. Calm our scary stories comments mods to my girlfriend talks in her sleep part 2. UTM source equals share, and medium equals web2x, and context equals 3. Let's move on to our next disturbing tale. Story 9. I found a tape of a woman being killed. I was at my grandmother's house, helping my grandmother move furniture around. She became my mother figure after the death of my mother when I was a young child, and I had been staying with her ever since my car accident. My grandmother helped nurse me back into health, so I made an effort to alleviate her of any and all physical tasks. I felt it was the least I could do. It was in the attic when I accidentally knocked over a box. The box was filled with VHS tapes, with the farthest dating back to 1990. All that was written on them was the year. There was a TV in the attic as well, because we used the attic as more like a functioning room than a storage space. So I decided to play the oldest tape. I expected to see happy memories, home videos, scenery, anything other than this. The video starts with whoever is holding the camera, filming a woman sitting alone at a small table at a coffee shop. She's reading. The camera was zoomed in on her hair glowing in the light. Fixed. The tape then skips to a new setting, in what looks like downtown Chicago somewhere. I can see the back of the same woman from before, walking down the street, oblivious to the person trailing and filming behind her. The sky is now a dark gray. I can see lights from passing cars glinting off her shiny boots. The camera is clambering and rubbing up against the jacket of the cameraman. He or she's not far from her, but is far enough away to show that he or she's not with her, clearly stalking her. The scene lasted maybe 5 minutes of the monotonous walking until it shifted to the woman now bound and stowed in the trunk of a car. She was taped up, unable to speak. All I could hear was the sound of heavy rainfall accompanied by her screaming and crying. Her muffled panic broke my heart in two. My spine became frozen. I couldn't open my eyes any wider. Any moment the film could shift to something so much more grotesque, so morbid, so life-changing, and I could do nothing ... but watch and ... horror ... I saw a black-gloved covered hand sprout from behind the camera, slam the trunk door closed, trapping her inside. It's now clearly night. The next scene skips to the woman, now beaten and bloody, while tied to a chair. The location looks to be a warehouse somewhere. The only light coming from a single fluorescent bulb above the woman, illuminating pools of crimson red. Blood. At her feet. The camera is steadily held, so much that it seems to be propped up by a stand. I can hear the poor woman moaning in pain underneath the tape covering her mouth. I can also hear something shifting around on the concrete, like someone adjusting their stance. It seemed manic. I could hear clambering of metal, like tools being packed ... or unpacked from a bag. My stomach now fully turned. The stalker then walks into frame, showing only his back. His head was completely covered in a balaclava. He carried a blade in his right hand. My heart completely halted. The stalker held her drooping head up, tilted her face upward, and began to slice her throat from her left ear all the way to the right. She squirmed and gargled in her desperate and useless attempt to survive. I had never seen so much ... blood in my life. The killer then takes off his mask and stares into the camera, flashing a toothy grin. The film then abruptly stops. I was held in place by my now shot nerves. My blood slowed into stillness, completely discoloring my body into an almost corpse-like white. My grandmother was watching me. She, shakingly, tried to console me from across the room, struggling to form words through the river of tears streaming down her face. She said she didn't want me to ever be reminded of who I was before my accident. Thank you for reading. I am welcoming of any constructive criticism you may have about my writing, the story, or anything you can find. And that was just the beginning of tonight's ... horror compilation. Story number 10. Horrifying experience during quarantine. I was upstairs in my room one night playing video games with the volume really loud when I thought I heard noises coming from downstairs. I muted the TV and listened closer. Nothing. I resumed playing the game for another hour when I heard it again, only louder. I was sure I heard it this time and was a little freaked out. To assure myself, I went downstairs to the basement where I thought I heard the noise coming from. As soon as I opened the basement door, I was hit with a cold breeze. I went downstairs and saw the window wide open. I was 100% sure I had closed and locked all the windows in the house. I was ready to make a run for it when something stopped me. I turned around and for the first time noticed the closet door was slightly cracked open. I stood for what seemed like 30 minutes in front of that door debating whether I should open it. I moved closer and put my hand on the doorknob. All of a sudden I heard a creepy crackle coming from inside the closet. I have never run faster up a flight of stairs before. I locked the door and called the cops, who had an unusually fast response time. They came in and searched the house, and not even 5 minutes into their search I heard a gunshot from downstairs. A few minutes later, they came out with a deranged-looking man, probably homeless. They put him in the back of the car and told me they had opened the door, and the man was holding a gun, shot at them and missed. He luckily missed, and the cops disarmed him and arrested him. The scariest part was how close I was to opening that door and likely being murdered. This one is called Daddy's Never Gonna Hurt You Again. I was my dad's only child. Being a daughter, you'd assume a father would be protective. I'd get beat regularly, and much worse. When you're 6, you'll do what you have to in order to survive, because running away is not an option. I suppose I knew it was coming. It was Friday night, and once night had fallen, and it was only my mother and I. The dreaded routine of beatings and grasping at the straws of futility would only be a matter of time. Go, Lily. Go sit in the closet and wait for me. My mother was a Cuban immigrant with nothing but courage flowing through her veins. Still, I never understood at the time what a restraining order was, nor why it could so easily be broken. When the rumbling engine rang out and potent exhaust fumes began to flow through the vents, I could only recoil, because evasion was my only defense. Predicting that the level of his rage depended on the force of the cart or slamming, so when it audibly shattered the driver's side window, I knew it was worse than ever. As a child, my anxiety would render me unable to move. A spider flash lit. I couldn't make split decisions. So when the door is kicked down, and I hear Helena, "Helena, you bitch. That door better be unlocked." I likely was staying put, even if running was the best choice. By this point I dissociated from my body by focusing on 2 ants on the floor carrying piles of potato chip crumbs when the thud of my mother's body hit the kitchen floor. I could unwittingly escape the horrors inevitable to come by staring at a spot on the wall and imagining myself watching from the other side of the room to cope until it ended, every single time. As for Mother, this night, no words were uttered. She never got a chance. "Lily, baby. Daddy's home. Come out and Daddy won't be mad." Muscles tensed agonizingly tight. I was frozen once again. Tears streaming down my cheeks. I'd learned to cry silently. The stumbling, uneven footsteps on the first floor told me he was more inebriated than usual, and also it told me that Mom was really hurt. Usually she'd fight him with every fiber of her being on his way to the staircase, despite it always resulting in bloodshed. And then, 1, 3. The footsteps creaked up the steps. "Lily, here I come. Better be special for me tonight. Be a good girl and come out." Mom always instructed me to hide in different places, ... but never thought to tell me to just leave. The internal force of my inability to react and the external evil of my impending ... death had me feeling acceptance. At only 6 years old, I was already prepared to die, and die horribly. 4, 5. Almost up the steps. I'm a spider under a flashlight, wanting so terribly to make the decision to run to the bathroom and hide behind the curtain, ... but too frightened to act on it. "Mommy, if ghosts exist, then please do something." Then, that inevitable cracking of the broken top step. He's here. Dad was at the top of the steps. The bathroom. The shower curtain. Hide in plain sight. Do it, Lily. It's your only chance. The first place he'll look is the closet. I was screaming inside. Then I heard the bathroom door slowly creak opened, steps moving inside, and the shower curtain. Metal against metal, he'd ripped it off the hinges. No Lily there. Where could she be? Where did Mommy hide you this time? Sweating, heart racing, fingers running up and down the delicate skin of my belly, and brush over the soft skin of my arms, over top of the already existing scars. How much more ... Blood. Would I lose once again? Dad was just outside the bedroom. And then the footsteps halted, right outside the door. By the sound of the metal against the hollow door, I knew tonight he had a bat. Broke my legs with it once. I began to grip and pull at my clothes, ... And then, I couldn't stop it. I began crying profusely, and in an effort to hopefully live, even if it meant disfigurement, I stood up and got ready to step out into the ... shadow of the 6-foot-tall, brooding figure bearing down on me, ready to take the whipping, beating, or worse, that thing which would awaken me in sweat from my nightly terrors. If baby girl's in the closet, come out wherever you are. I'd accepted my fate. And then a dull, loud tack noise and vibration of the floor from a loud slam. Dad was so drunk, he'd fallen over. Maybe now I could run. But I couldn't get my legs to move. And then, the visual of my mom's bloody corpse flashed in my mind, and miraculously, something imperceptible caused me to jump up and run. I pushed out of the closet and ran to the door, prepared to jump over Dad's hopefully unconscious body and leave out the back door ... And as I approached the door, I was stopped in my tracks. Standing in the hallway was my mother, unharmed and untouched. And at her feet, Dad's lifeless body with an axe in his back. I gazed up at my mother with watery eyes in wonder and astonishment, and when her eyes met mine, she said the sweetest thing to ever fall upon my ears. Mama found a good hiding spot, baby. Daddy's never gonna hurt you again. That concludes tonight's horror compilation. If you made it this far, leave a comment telling me which story disturbed you the most. Subscribe and hit the bell for more ... Nightmare fuel. Sleep tight. If you can.